Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is my first live on YouTube, and I can't believe the hoops I've just had to go through to get this far. And if anybody knows anyone that can teach anyone how to do this, I mean, I'm quite good at educating myself, especially following YouTube instructions and things like that. But it's like, oh my gosh. First of all, I had to learn about enabling going live on YouTube, which I did a few days or maybe even a couple of weeks ago, to be honest. And then I had to verify it. I wasn't sure if I'd done that. And today I had to learn all about an encoder, which is actually using stuff outside of, because I'm on my laptop at the moment. So being able to use cameras, microphones, and all that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh my God, do I go back in my front room and sit down and forget that I even agreed that I was going to do this? Oh, Indy's been barking because school's just kicked out and we've got a few stragglers in case you hear any children in the background. So the title I've used is Wanted, and I've literally been pondering over quite a few bits and pieces since my birthday, which was Tuesday just gone. And I've hit the grand old age of 62, so I'm classing myself now in the group of elders because I've gone past the 60. Oh, excuse me, Mark. And what it did, it made me think about all those years ago when mum and dad were courting, I suppose. And I've not hidden the fact, I've even, I think it was when they had their 50th anniversary, I decided to stand up in the pub and say that I was there at their wedding. They got married on the 18th of August, 1962, and I was born on the 4th of March, 1963. So I think I can quite happily stand there and say that I know what went on. So the reason that I decided that I was going to use this topic today was because people that are closest to me know that I've not been able to have children. Not that I haven't had children. I fostered. I looked after problem teenagers years ago when I wasn't just out of being a teenager myself. So I've always been somebody that's looked after people, children, little ones, now adults. So it seems to be that, that's the sort of thing that I do naturally. But a little while ago, I started a course, which was the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. I did the Bardic course, which took me through the poetry, the song, talking about the history of how bards behaved years and years ago. That was interesting. Then the Ovate course, which was more about the seer, like mediumship, intuition, tarot cards, being close to nature, working with trees and things like that. And I enjoyed both of it. And I decided that I was going to continue and do the Druid grade. I've slowed down on that. I have struggled with it a little bit because I didn't know whether I wanted to finish it or not. But I've picked up again. I thought I'm going to complete the course. But within that course, there's things that, not the Druid course, the Ovate course, it actually takes you down the road of the ancestors. And there was a few things that that I did in that course that pulled on a few heartstrings. And some of the things that I hadn't thought that I dealt with, we have our ordinary side and we've got our shadow side, and our shadow side follows us everywhere we go. And there are things that come up and bring emotions to the surface, and you kind of like have to deal with them. But if you suppress them, then you become unwell. So already I'm waffling, and I've gone away from the fact that the reason that I chose to use the title as Wanted was basically around the fact that I was conceived out of wedlock, and there was a pressure put on mum and dad not to have me, basically. And what they must have gone through in those months, I hadn't even thought about. I'd never given it any time. As you're growing up and as you're a child and all that sort of thing, going forward, you just don't, those things don't enter your head. And it's only now, I suppose, in my elder years that I've got space to think about all those things. And the way that I deal with stuff as it comes up, I write poetry. For those of you that don't know, I actually put them on my website, donnab.co.uk. That's where you can find most of them, and I blog there as well. It's not a regular occurrence, but I think it's going to be becoming more the more that I do. So I just wanted to read the poem that I wrote to you, if that's okay. So, as I said, it's called Wanted. In the blink of an eye, here I am, growing in a confined space. Cellular connections, magnificent, being part of the human race. Encompassed in the matrix of life, DNA of long ago, relevant today. I'm protected, I'm warm, I'm fed. The size of a sweet pea, no way. Isn't it also amazing to be created into a beautiful human form? Born into your chosen family where babies are the norm. Happiness, excitement, overwhelmed, frightened and sure, so sad. Arguments and happiness, outcast, so many feelings to be had. Carrying new life to the registrar. Just 8 weeks, what's wrong? Conceived out of wedlock, very much frowned upon. When dad disowns his daughter, the pain is so intense. Her life, her love, her hero, none of it makes sense. Doesn't love conquer all? What's this about, saving face? Thoughts and respect from others, bringing shame and disgrace. A joyous occasion made unpleasant, deprived of weeks of glee, just because they were the day that they made me. Times have changed, we've all moved on, months it took to heal. Back in the day of years gone by, to them it was very real. The energies and patterns of matrix in June of 62 were planted. I know of them, I was there. I take nothing now for granted. So I want to dedicate that to my mum and dad, and I want to give gratitude for what they went through within the first 6 months of having to deal with the way that things were back in the day. And aren't we grateful for the way that things are now? I know in certain places it's still frowned upon, certain traditions and all that sort of thing, but being part of that made me feel it a bit more over the last couple of days. And it also took me back to when I was 17. I was dating. I was naughty. And I went to the doctor when I was about 19 because I felt sure that I should have fallen pregnant and had babies, and it didn't happen. And unfortunately for me, or it may be just at that time of and that sort of like generation of doctors, whatever, I went to the doctors and I said that, I can't believe that I have not fallen pregnant. And I was told to go away, get married, and 2 years after that, come back if I've still had the problem. So this is what I did. I went back, and then I ended up having to go to the local RUH clinic to get checked out. And one of the things that I really, really struggled with was it was the maternity ward where I was being sent to be tested and to be spoken to about everything. And then they would tell me it was my weight. They would say that it was probably the fact that it was the wrong time of the month to conceive and all this sort of thing. I was sent away with a thermometer, where you actually monitor what your temperature is, so you can work out where your fertility line falls and all that kind of business. And I was put on clomiphene-induced hair growth. So, I've battled all my life since my early 20s with hair. And so that was an added extra, if you like. But because I was going through all of this and I was going to the maternity ward to have all these tests and everything, I got excited because I thought that I was being given a tablet and this was going to help me get pregnant. And I'd go back and all the negatives, it was quite disheartening after a little while. But nobody knew, apart from my then husband, what I was doing. I had a spare bedroom. There was a cot in it. I was collecting, nesting, baby changing mat, baby grows, bibs, socks, all of those sort of things. I would never buy the clothes that, like the vesties and things like that. And I built my little nursery, if you like. And then eventually I was given an ultrasound, which was a couple of years down the road again. And I was told at that point I had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it wasn't that popular, or, at that point in around about 1983, the early 80s anyway, to the point that I'd actually had a ultrasound tube inserted, and on the screen it showed my ovaries, and I was told about the string of pearls that were around the inside of the ovaries, and that's what the cysts were, and that was one of the reasons that was preventing pregnancies. So the nurse that was actually dealing with me at the time was quite surprised, and she said, "Stay there, don't move," as if I could, and then brought this male doctor in, and they were discussing what they could see and everything like that, and then I had another appointment, and I had to see the gynecologist, who then explained what it was, and that you have to have a progesterone level of 30, and mine was 3, and all this sort of business. And then a little while longer, still going to the maternity clinic. So now knowing, that I can't have children, would need to have children. And I always vowed that I would never go down the IVF road, because I thought if I'm not meant to have children, then, I'll accept that I'm not meant to have them. And going through what I'd gone through at that point was enough already. So, yeah, it was years and years before they actually took it on board that people that were suffering, is that the right word? Or couldn't have children, were being put in the ward where women were showing their pregnancy and being there with their babies. And I struggled. I really struggled with that. And that was a hidden thing. It's nothing, I didn't talk about it often. So coming away from there, and then having a, like a biopsy done and all this sort of business, then being told that I had cancerous cells in my cervix. And if you go 2 years without having a period, that is not healthy for somebody, for a woman, sorry, to go that long, because it actually can create cancer cells. And I was put on some tablets, and I was told not to worry about it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I was about a 2. So there was no counselling or anything like that around for what I was going through at that time, and I didn't even know I needed it. And it's only when things, it's like a snowball, isn't it? When it goes down a hill, it picks up momentum and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then eventually it smashes when it hits something. That it's a little bit like that, I suppose. When you're going around town and you've got somebody that's just had a baby, or you've got sisters and brothers within the family that are starting their own little families and everything like that. And bless her, Louise, when she had Leroy and she came home, Mum was waiting to hold him and to cuddle her first grandchild. And she said, "Donna, this should have been you, not me." And bless her, touched a few heartstrings, and I've never forgotten it. So, all of those things, when you're younger and you're thinking about getting married and having a family, those sort of things don't come into play unless it actually lands on your doorstep. And then you've got, when you've got married, are you going to be having children? And that's the expected, or was the expected thing when you got married. The next thing was to have a family. And, people questioning, are you going to have children? And then you have to say, well, actually, I can't. And then it's like, oh, I'm really sorry. And then there's that awkwardness that you're dealing with as well. Yeah, and walking around the high street, seeing people pushing prams, that was a thing. And I suppose being told in my early 20s that that was something that was never going to happen for me, had I been listened to, the first time that I went to the doctors, it's easier with polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was led to believe, when you're younger, and if you manage to conceive and have a child, then that kind of like not rectifies the issue, but it does help for you to have more children. So if you're somebody that is of a young age and you have a sense that you feel that you haven't got pregnant for whatever reason, go and get yourself sorted if that's the road that you want to go down. I highly recommend that. We were then taken and offered a course with the gynecologist who knew quite a lot about polycystic ovaries, and that was a couple of years down the road. And there was a discussion about packaging, plastic packaging that your food is in. And we were told not to eat food that were actually wrapped in plastic because the plastic contains XN estrogen. And you're estrogen dominant, and you don't need to be estrogen dominant with polycystic ovaries. You have to, try and not add to the issue, if that makes sense. So there was a lot to learn, a lot to go through. I have no regrets. I know how it made me feel at the time. It wasn't a great space to be. And if anybody ever wants to talk to me about what it feels like not to have children, I'm open to that conversation. So really, it's just been a reflection for me about all the things that I've been through in my life. And that's one of the things that I've decided that I wanted to share through a YouTube channel, which I've called Auntie-Donna, because I am an auntie, and not just to blood relatives, but, outside of that as well. And I love children. I've worked in schools, so I've not been without that being around children, for the want of a better word. And one of the stories that I'm going to leave you with, I do have other stories about other issues as well that I've had throughout my life, and I shall share some of those too, as well as my creativity and the work that I do. I will do something about my background because I'm noticing the electrical stuff has not been covered up yet, but I'm not bothered. I'm not proud in that sense, so I'm not worrying about it. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, Auntie-Donna. There is a YouTube channel called Auntie-Donna already, but it's a comedy thing, which I thought was hilarious. But Auntie is spelt with a Y, so Auntie-Donna in this sense, I wasn't sure whether I was going to use Auntie with an IE or not, and then I got invited to my niece's wedding, Samantha and Kim, and I wanted confirmation whether I should use Auntie in that way or not. And I've got it here actually. Just bear with me a second. The confirmation came with my place card. Auntie-Donna. So I thought, yes, I'm gonna use it. So that's where it's come from. But bless her, Samantha, when she was about 5 or 6, I used to go and visit when they lived in Kent. And I used to leave home at 3 o'clock in the morning, get there at 6. And then I used to leave at 3 in the afternoon and get home at 6, and used to spend the day there. And I can't remember what it was. I was talking to Samantha about something, and I was actually, chatting to her like this. And by the time I finished, she stood there and she said to me, "Auntie-Donna." I said, "Yes, Samantha. You can put your eyebrows down now." I didn't even notice. Oh my gosh. We've had laughs and laughs and laughs about that. So I'm going to leave that one with you. I'm going to end the stream now and see what damage I've done and try and work out how to do the rest of this for the next time. Much love to all of you from Auntie-Donna.